Begin with correspondent Nate Foy outside Manhattan Federal Court. Good evening, Nate.
Brett, good evening. A historic day here in downtown Manhattan where Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores appeared in federal court. An interesting moment at the end of the arraignment. A man spoke in Spanish to Maduro saying that he will pay for what he has done. Maduro responded saying he's a kidnapped president and a prisoner of war. Amid a backdrop of protest in Manhattan, former Venezuelan president turned illegitimate dictator Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores pleaded not guilty to charges of narco-terrorism, importing cocaine, and weapons offenses. Maduro told the court, quote, "I'm innocent, I'm not guilty, I'm a decent man, I'm still president of my country." Maduro and Flores traveled to the courthouse by helicopter and an armored vehicle motorcade flanked by DEA agents. Maduro and his co-defendants are accused of partnering with narco-terrorists like the Sinaloa cartel and the Tren de Aragua gang. Dating back to 1999, prosecutors say Maduro led an operation that provided law enforcement cover and logistical support to transport thousands of tons of cocaine from producers in Colombia to Venezuela and eventually Central America to then reach the United States.
This was a criminal organization that used the instrumentalities, facilities of the state to make Venezuela a hub of drug trafficking.
Prosecutors say in 2006, while serving as Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Maduro, quote, provided Venezuelan diplomatic passports to drug traffickers and facilitated diplomatic cover for planes used by money launderers to repatriate drug proceeds. Maduro and Flores are even accused of ordering the kidnappings and murders of those who threaten their drug empire. Today at an emergency UN Security Council meeting, Ambassador Mike Waltz insisted the case against Maduro is strong.
The overwhelming evidence of his crimes will be presented openly in U.S. court proceedings.
Today, lawyers for Maduro and Flores did not seek bail, but indicated that they would in later proceedings. The next court date is coming up on March 17th. Until then, Flores and Maduro will remain in federal custody in Brooklyn. Brett?
Nate Foy, live in Manhattan. Nate, thank you.
General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, detailing the meticulous months of intelligence prep work that went into the capture of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela.
After months of work by our intelligence teammates to find Maduro and understand how he moved, where he lived, where he traveled, what he ate, what he wore, what were his pets, in early December, our force was set pending a series of aligned events.
Maduro was staying between 6 and 8 different locations and being tracked by a fleet of secret stealth CIA drones flying above him, according to reporting in the New York Times. Reuters reported that the CIA had an asset close to Maduro, monitoring his every move. Mike Pompeo, former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, also former Secretary of State and a Fox News contributor. Great to have you with us today, Mike. You know, your thoughts, your reaction to this incredible operation that it used about 150 U.S. planes, not to mention the kind of long-term intelligence that we just described.
Well, Martha, it's great to be with you, and it warms my heart. And it makes me proud to be an American. Certainly what General Kane spoke to is true. Many months of detailed planning, amazing intelligence work. You know, we often denigrate our intelligence officers. This was really first-class work. And it wasn't just those months. It is years of work that the American people have enabled our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines to have the training, the equipment, the knowledge, that strategic effort. Over years, built up a set of skills that no other nation in the world could have pulled this off, Martha. There's only one military that could have done this. And then the tactical effort, the ability to get the very surprise and the absolutely exquisite ballet that you saw, right? Bombs falling, electricity turned off, soldiers, helicopters, all deeply coordinated. The timing absolutely perfect to execute this in a way that allowed all of our equipment and, most importantly, all of our young warriors to get back home to their families is truly unequaled in recent American history. A kudos to each of them, and kudos to the American people for supporting these warriors in their efforts.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the news conference that we had after the Iran attack about the execution of that attack, the planning of it. It's interesting to see President Trump. I mean, he's got his eyes in a lot of different directions, clearly, in terms of potential targets or potential change. But this post from the Department of State, this is our hemisphere, and President Trump will not allow our security to be threatened. And then you have this reaction from the Chinese foreign minister's spokesperson condemning the United States for this, saying China expresses grave concern over the U.S. forced seizure and transfer out of the country of President Maduro and his wife, clear violation of international law and basic norms governing international relations. So China obviously didn't like to see this happen. Iran, all of them, Cuba had operations, Russia, and Maduro was their guy in Venezuela. Now he's gone. So what does it mean?
Yes, when that cast of characters is opposed to what you do, you probably did a pretty darn good thing, Martha.
Yeah.
And for the Chinese to call out lawlessness as if it's something they're not the number one violator of international law is really quite something. What does it mean? It means now that the Chinese won't have access to cheap Venezuelan oil in the same way that they have and with the same ease. It means that the Iranians' efforts to transit illicit materials back and forth between Iran and Venezuela and our hemisphere here in the West will be more difficult. The Russians were proven once again to be terrible allies, right? The Cubans and the Russians have protected Maduro for years, and they couldn't stop the United States from an attack like this. I think the next dictator who says, hey, I'd like a few more Russian air defense systems to protect me is going to think twice about that, realize that they're nearly worthless when the power actually comes. And so I think this demonstrates once again that the right ally is the United States of America, and nations all across the world will see this. And dictators are surely sleeping a little more uneasy this evening as well.
Yeah. So, you know, to the two different areas of government that you once led, we know that John Ratcliffe at the CIA, obviously, they pulled off a very impressive operation here and deserve a lot of credit for what we saw play out. And then Secretary of State, which you also wore, Marco Rubio. Here he is defending and explaining this operation a bit in the face of some pushback on Sunday. Watch this.
The person who controls the police, he's still in place. The defense minister, who has deep ties to Russia, $15 million price on his head, he is still in place. I'm confused. Are they still wanted by the United States? Why didn't you arrest them?
You're confused? I don't know why that's confusing to you.
They're still in power.
It's very simple. You wanted us to land in 5 other military bases?
No, I'm asking why you chose that this was the limit of the military operation.
He was the guy who was claiming to be the president.
Right. Well, the opposition...
He was the top target.
Okay.
Your reaction to that?
Yes, look, we're all happy with what happened, but it's going to take a little bit of patience, and I think that's what you heard Secretary Rubio say. And so Director Ratcliffe and he have done really good work. I am confident in advance of this to talk with the folks who are now putatively in charge of Venezuela, to tell them our expectations for them, how it is we expect that they will behave in the aftermath of the decapitation of the leader of that country, not the president, but the guy who was in charge and controlled the military. Now it'll be up to those military leaders to conform to what it is the United States is going to demand from them. And if they don't, I'm confident that the support that the Venezuelan people will need to make this democratic transition simply won't be there. And I think now the opportunity that was created for those people in Venezuela, the very gentleman you had on the show earlier, the people of Venezuela who are celebrating not only in Venezuela but around the world, they now have their opportunity, and it'll take the patience to make the transition from where they were for these last, call it quarter century, to the next quarter century of a successful Venezuela.
Yeah, very important days, but a huge catalyst has happened over the weekend that can potentially produce the kind of change that you are talking about. Thank you so much, Secretary Pompeo. Always great to see you, sir. Happy New Year.
Dana, let me know if I get this straight. The left is defending a dictator who stole an election.
But only now, because during Trump's first term, they went after him for not removing Maduro.
Right.
Okay, and they're on video saying all of this, so
Right.
it's not hard to go back and look all of those things up. Yesterday, the House Democrats had an emergency meeting to talk about their messaging because they're a hot mess. They are twisted all in knots about what are they going to say, and they think that their base wants them to say, Like if President Trump said, we're going to cure cancer, they would say, leave cancer alone. Like, but if you just take a step back, it's no wonder that Democrats who are in swing states or in tough districts, they realize that the initial gut reaction to go against anything is going to make their lives harder in trying to win back 2026. But there was an alternative. For example, let's say you're really worried about Venezuelan migrants that have come to America, and you're upset that President Trump has removed that temporary protective status, right? And you say, okay, well, what is something that we could do where we could get something from Trump that we want? Well, you wanted Maduro gone before. I guess they're deciding if they still want him gone. They also think, well, it shouldn't be about oil, but they were the ones complaining when the oil was taken from the American companies, or the rights were taken from the American companies years ago. But why can't they ever just say, you know what we should do? Let's go to the president tomorrow and ask him if he's willing for anybody that's from Venezuela that doesn't have pending criminal charges against them, or some sort of sexual charge against them, or like some sort of conviction, could they stay while this gets worked out? Like, try to go to him and get something for your support for something that you wanted under Trump and Biden, his only term, and Trump's first term. That doesn't make sense.
Do you know, Greg, what the Democrat policy is on Venezuela?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
They don't see a dictator, they see a father.
Oh.
A father with a son and 3 stepsons. And once again, Trump, the authoritarian, has split a family up.
Aw.
And you know what? Oh, you can mock me or you can laugh at me. I don't care. But what I see there is nothing short of a tragedy, especially around the holidays, to split them up like that. You know, I love that the Dems were so upset that Trump sent Maryland dad to Central America and demanded him back for due process. Now they're mad that we bring this guy here from Venezuela for due process. Shouldn't they be happy? We could say, but we're just doing due process, you know. But you got to ask, you know, when you look, if you're a young leftist, you got to think for yourself and go, why are all these protests interchangeable? Why are the protesters interchangeable? Why do the signs all look alike and readily available? And I get it, you know, you're the opposition. Democrats are the opposition, but it's kind of funny when you start opposing yourself. The Dems will now defend anyone, including if it means contradicting their own beliefs from a few years ago. Chris Murphy was at Bozo, right? He was screaming to get Maduro out, and now he's like, oh, this is terrible. He said that the fact that Maduro was still in Venezuela was proof that Trump loves dictators. And now he's going, how dare he do this? So you got to I don't know. Also, and I'll shut up because I don't know if I'm making any sense. I'm just basically winging it. You got to love a party that violates federal law with sanctuary cities and then imploring their own law enforcement to defy or hinder ICE, then telling you that you're violating the law. That is like Ilhan Omar accusing you of incest.
That's been proven, right? I mean, no, not the incest, the marrying. No,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Incest.
I'm just saying how ridiculous it is that anybody would accuse you of it. I just chose Ilhan Omar.
I got it. Out of the blue.
Yeah.
It seems like they wanted Trump in prison, but they want Maduro free. Is that the Democrat strategy?
Right. If any law is meant to be broken, if it in any way has to do with President Trump, here, however, what's more simple than a criminal indictment that, by the way, the original one issued under Biden's watch, and then hauling that person to court? For some reason, this absolutely implodes because it all occurred under President Trump's watch. The thing that I'm most surprised by in that montage was Stregonona there, the one who was in her 90s, who doesn't remember, who questions the authority by which we are arresting Maduro when she's the one that should remember. I'm now used to, unfortunately, all of these Democrat politicians and all of these sophomores that are protesting outside, forgetting everything about history. But I would think someone of her age would remember exactly what happened, for example, with Noriega, and maybe back to the 1800s case I mentioned earlier, because maybe she's that old. But the whole point is that, again, to go back to that criminal jurisdiction, Even if a defendant never set foot here, even if everything illegal happened off this shore, it is well settled, even if, per the Noriega comment, even if the capture violated international law and we improperly and unlawfully permeated that airspace and the sovereign land, even if the invasion itself was unlawful, which, by the way, all of those things are not here, even so, nothing strips the court of the jurisdiction over this criminal case. So people like Kamala, look, I know Kamala didn't pass the bar in the first time. I know she has an issue with knowing the law. So maybe I'm here to remind her that, yes, he squarely belongs in that court. And the court specifically talked about, even if this is someone who was abducted, and here, she's the one that says, correct, he is a dictator. Correct, he is not an actual sovereign president or state. So leader of a state. So she should know more than anyone that this was the most lawful thing about it. And unlike Noriega, this was safer. We didn't even need to use Metallica, right? So everyone here, it just goes to show that they have to say something. They have to have that clickbait. They can't simply say, thank you, President Trump, for hauling in the dictator that deserves to be in the defendant chair, that deserves to answer for millions of people whose lives have been ruined and hundreds of thousands of people who have died under his impervious watch. But unfortunately, they just want that dopamine hit. They want the followers rather than constituents to applaud them.
Congress has every right to expect to be made aware of a military attack on land, and they should have the right to be consulted. We have a history in recent years where at least the Gang of Eight, the heads of the Intelligence Committee and the leaders in both the House and the Senate, there's a trust that the president, regardless of any party. I don't know about the young lady, the woman you were talking about, what may have motivated her to say what she said. But this is why I think it's incumbent upon the president to come before the country. I think the country wants to understand, which I think we all understand, we got a narco-terrorist and we've arrested him, and that was the right thing to do. I think the confusion comes as people are trying to digest, what does this mean for military action in Venezuela? Should we expect another? The president, I think, flippantly and in his own way said that the vice president, who is now the president, she should expect worse if she does not follow what we're saying. I think the confusion for a lot of people, Emily, and those around the table, is when President Trump, in the press conference at Mar-a-Lago, which I watched very closely and watched Secretary Rubio very closely, when he was asked what's going to happen in Venezuela now, and he said, we're going to run the country. I think that's what really provoked and catalyzed a lot of this reaction. I think the Democrats are reacting the way some are. You're right, Jesse and Dana, there's an inconsistency in what, and Greg, you pointed out something that Senator Murphy said. There's an inconsistency there that you have to fess up to. But if you're the president, you have to give a message to the country, explain what we did, explain why we did it, what running the country means. And I've seen some people in the administration talk about this term FAFO, which I think they really mean mess around and find out. That can't be a governing military doctrine. You said it well, Greg, just a few seconds ago. It almost feels like we're winging some of it. We didn't wing the military part of it. Jay Clayton is not winging the exercise of the legal instruments that he's using, as Emily said, but it doesn't sound like we know fully why we're there, what we're trying to accomplish, and frankly, what the Dunroe doctrine actually is.
He did invoke my name. I didn't say anybody winging anything.
You used the word winging, not about him.
He was winging it.
I said I was winging it,
and
Harold.
I just used it to say somebody
How dare
else.
you? By the way, you did mention one thing about like running this before Congress. There is no trust. It would have been leaked immediately, and those people would have died.
I disagree with you.
Oh no, we know it. You had Democrats basically telling the military to disobey orders. There's no way after that Trump is going to tell anybody anything. In terms of saying run the country, he's basically saying we're cutting up their credit cards for now. That's all it is.
There's been no example of anybody leaking anything under President Trump, and I hate to say this, but the only time anyone is talking about military,
Harold, they weaponized the intelligence briefings.
That's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. The only leaking was by the president's own team on a tweet site.
You're wrong. I'm right. Happy New Year.
Was inside the courthouse for the hearing. He's also an attorney and retired NYPD inspector with a lot of knowledge across the judicial board here on how law enforcement works. Paul, great to have you with us. Your takeaway from what we watched in that courthouse today?
Well, Martha, I think you put your finger right on it. I don't think has entirely got the message that he is no longer the president of Venezuela. In fact, it's one of the things he said in court, and I don't think reality has bitten yet. He said that he is innocent. His demeanor in court was very much still of somebody who considers himself a world leader, so much so that the hearing started with him starting to spout off a little bit to the judge before he was actually asked. And in fact, the judge had to stop him and said, there'll be time for that later, but right now you're not going to do that. The judge took control of the courtroom. So in terms of demeanor, he still is a proud, in his mind, leader of a nation, while as his wife sitting next to him seemed a lot more intimidated, shrunken, and bewildered. I don't think yet that Nicolas Maduro realizes quite what the future holds for him.
Yeah, well, now he's back in the holding facility at the correctional facility in Brooklyn, where there have been a sort of notorious crew of inmates over the course of recent history. Ghislaine Maxwell was held there. Let's put it up. Sean Diddy Combs was there. Sam Bankman-Fried, Luigi Mangione, and now Nicolas Maduro, all have been in this same facility in Brooklyn. They closed down where Epstein was, the Manhattan version of this, after that whole debacle. Give us a sense of what life is like at the Brooklyn facility.
Well, it's not good. I mean, first of all, they're holding more prisoners than the place was designed for. And if you don't want to take my word for it, you can take Ghislaine Maxwell's, because while everybody thought, okay, she's just being a diva, she actually listed some of the depredations of the place, and she's probably right. It's overcrowded, it's old. There's a reason that they're redoing the one in Manhattan here behind me. So, yeah, he's not staying in the Taj Mahal, but yet, despite having been there already, he doesn't seem to really think that, any of this is going to affect him or intimidate him, and he does seem to be defiant and ready to fight.
Paul Morrow, thank you very much. Great reporting today from this incredible story that broke over the weekend, and the military operation was extraordinary as well. We'll get into that in just a moment.
Professor and Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley is here. Jonathan, welcome to you. First off, it's been a big day. What struck you most so far?
Well, his statement in court was remarkable, that he's still the president of his country. You would think that the prison jumpsuit would disabuse him of that concept, but certainly over 50 countries around the world would not accept that, and I don't think the court will either. This is Noriega 2.0. I mean, he's going to be arguing that he is still the head of state entitled to immunity, just that very few people believe that's true. And he's in a worse position than Noriega. So I expect that they're going to stick the landing on this. This is going to go to trial, and he stands an excellent chance of being convicted. I mean, the only scarier thing than that operation for Maduro should be the superseding indictment. I mean, they have a lot on him, more than most of us imagined.
And that goes back to when the CIA got on the ground there. We are told, dating back to August 2025, when the CIA unit deployed to Venezuela to start monitoring Maduro and his wife's movements. When you look at the charges here, narco-terrorism, cocaine importation, conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, conspiracy to possess machine guns, the wife's charges, cocaine, possession of machine guns. It's no wonder AG Barr was on Newsroom earlier defending the capture of Maduro based on what we know about him and his wife. Listen.
Over our entire history, presidents have had a lot of latitude deploying military forces and using force in a targeted way to deal with threats to the United States. They have been violating international law by using their sovereign territory and their de facto control to conduct hostile activities that are slaughtering Americans. What are we supposed to do? Just sit here and let a narco state act like that? You can't use law enforcement to prosecute them over there and get their cooperation, because they are the problem.
Based on what we know to be fact from our own U.S. intelligence gathered over months of monitoring these two individuals, why do you fathom anyone is taking issue with his capture?
Well, I was baffled by all the Democratic members that came out and said this was clearly illegal. There's existing case precedent. Much of it was laid, the foundation of that was laid by Bill Barr. I mean, this is in many ways a case that was built on the foundation that Bill Barr laid. And you see that coming out of the Noriega cases, that these arguments failed. This is solidly within those navigational beacons to hold him for trial. They have not only these recordings that they say show him taking an active role in the criminal enterprise, but this wasn't just simply a criminal enterprise. This was a family enterprise. And so you've got his son, his wife, with facing very strong evidence. But you also have high-ranking former associates who have pled guilty. And they very well could be cooperating witnesses, including the former head of military intelligence in his country. That is an extremely daunting prospect for any criminal defense attorney.
So now he and his wife have returned to this jail in Brooklyn. What do we watch for next? Obviously, March 17th is going to be the next big date. But based on how everything went today, how do you anticipate things going from here?
Well, there's a couple of things that they're going to have to address, Sandra. One is going to be, how are you going to pay your lawyers? Now, it's possible that they've already asked to speak to the consulate, which is their right as foreign nationals under our treaty obligations. It may be that the Venezuelan government has already paid for counsel. If so, I would strongly encourage them to make a lump sum payment, because that government may change and be less forthcoming with that type of support. But the government can demand proof that legal fees are coming from lawful, legitimate sources. And then after they resolve some of those threshold issues, then you're in it. I've been on this side as criminal defense counsel in classified national security cases. And you have to go through these documents. One of the defense counsel, maybe two, will be designated as cleared counsel. And they will sit in a metal room called a SCIF, and they will look through all of these documents, and they will file challenges. That's why this isn't going to go anywhere for over a year as they work through this stuff.
Wow. All right, Jonathan Turley on all of that for us. Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
All right.
Definitely. Hi, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Emily Campagno, Harold Ford Jr., Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. A defiant dictator having his day in court ousted Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro, claiming that he was kidnapped, and he and his wife plead not guilty to a sweeping list of drug trafficking and weapons charges. Maduro telling the judge, quote, "I am innocent. I am not guilty. I am a decent man. I am still president of my country." All of this comes after a breathtaking dead-of-night capture at the hands of the U.S. military. President Trump defending the move to arrest Maduro.
What really played is the fact that he sent millions of people into our country from prisons and from mental institutions and drug dealers and every drug addict in that country, in his country, was sent into our country. The fact that he sent drugs into our country, we're stopping it rapidly.
So what comes next for Venezuela? Interim President Delcy Rodriguez is now vowing to cooperate with Washington after President Trump warned that she could suffer a fate worse than Maduro if Caracas does not work with his team. The goal? Likely access to Venezuela's vast oil reserves after U.S. companies were pushed out decades ago.
Don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
It means we're in charge. We're going to have the big oil companies go in. And they're going to fix the infrastructure, and they're going to invest money. We're not going to invest anything. We're going to just take care of the country. We need total access. We need access to the oil and to other things in their country that allow us to rebuild their country.
And Happy New Year, everybody. We get right back to it. Jesse, maybe start with you on just the overall news, the big picture, the shock and awe of it.
Sure. Audacious, Dana. First, big props to Delta Force. These guys go in on Night Stalkers in the dead of night, take on enemy fire, land, blowtorch the doors off this fortress, kill all of these Cuban bodyguards, and then capture this tyrant and his wife right as they were about to get into this steel safe house. They cuff them, they bring them home, absolutely incredible when you think about what could have gone wrong. You could have had a Mogadishu situation under Clinton. You could have had hostages like they did in Iran under Jimmy Carter, but this was a perfect operation. You know what it reminds me of? My back surgery. Donald Trump's like my surgeon. He's elegant and he's precise. And he went in there with the perfect extraction. You get this guy out of here. But Dana, this is not regime change. This is just trying to change the regime's behavior. Remember, the regime is still intact. So you have this vice president who we're going to have to deal with. Now, I don't know whether she is an ideologue, a thief, a nationalist. We're about to find out.
Might be our asset.
She could be. We don't know yet, but time will tell. But when Trump says we're going to run the country, what he means is we have a naval blockade, so we control the cash flow. We know what goes in, what goes out. So we know who gets paid. And if we don't want them to get paid, we can decide that. Or we can send in more commandos or more missiles, depending on people, if they behave or not. So what does behaving look like? That's the big question. They have to stop doing business with our enemies, the cartels, the communists, and Hezbollah. They have to stop pouring narcotics and migrants into our country, and they have to give us back our oil rights, which they stole. And judges have agreed these have been stolen from us. So if you have it's basically like the Spanish Saudi Arabia. They have more oil under the ground than the Saudis do. So you get the Western companies back in there, you get it back online, and what does that do? It makes Venezuela more prosperous, America more prosperous, keeps energy prices low, which starves the Putin war machine, keeps inflation down, which is good for the economy, and it isolates the Iranians, and it makes us the seller of oil to China. Now, we might not have elections for quite some time. We might have to bribe a lot of people in Venezuela, but I'd rather have them on our payroll than have them on the payroll of the cartels and the communists, which is why we'll be going down and broadcasting all next week live from Caracas.
I can't wait.
Johnny will be on the streets getting the pulse of the people, doing man on the street, and that is something everybody will look forward to.
I can't wait to see the movie clips he pulls.
That's right.
That will go with
in
it.
Espanol.
Harold, one thing that was interesting was the unity amongst Republicans and Democrats in Florida on this action.
Without question. First of all, Happy New Year to everybody, and it's good to be with everybody around the table. I was pleased to see that 2DP, and I was expecting also some pushback from some about whether or not Congress was advised or Congress was consulted or even Congress was communicated with. But we'll come to that in a little bit. I agree with Jesse. The execution of this mission, and we think about some of the nonsensical things that some say about how DEI has ruined our military. Our military has done Operation Midnight Hammer, and they've done this as well as other things since President Trump has been in office flawlessly. And this is another example of it. I applaud Jay Clayton, the Southern District, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District here, who obviously understands, as he shared this morning, how serious this case is, how prepared they have to be. And equally important, I think that Emily would agree, our system of law declares that you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. And the U.S. Attorney said that this morning. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky for me. I don't know exactly what the primary motive was for going in and getting Maduro, who is a bad guy. I understand why the Florida congressional delegation celebrated. There's a former member of the Tennessee delegation sitting on this table here who celebrated as well. But when the president said that, and I heard Mr. Rubio say we're going after a narco-terrorist, which we should have, and which we have, and I think that others have also said we need to meet these drug dealers where they are, and this guy is a drug dealer. And I believe that the U.S. Attorney's Office here will bring justice. The question is, are we there for the narco issue, or are we there because they have mismanaged the production of their natural resources? And one will say both. I give President Trump a lot of credit. He just basically said it out loud, said the quiet part out loud, said we're there also to ensure that they produce oil in a way that is conducive and consistent with the kind of reserves that they have. And I wonder aloud if that's what the country wants. President Trump a few weeks ago delivered a national televised address to talk about some of his economic accomplishments. If he's watching us this evening, I would encourage him to give another address to tell us exactly what we're hoping to do, what we're planning to do, and how long he thinks it may take us to do the things he wants us to do there. Because I happen to believe that focusing on our own hemisphere is something we should be doing. I've been saying since I've been on this show that this should be a priority of the administration. But if the priority is not catalyzing all of this growth and rule of law and governance in these countries to help those countries survive and help those countries flourish so they won't come to our country, but it's to help our oil companies and us make more money. I think the country would love to know a few more of the details there. But I'm one Democrat and one American who says congratulations to our military, and I say congratulations to President Trump for having the courage to go get this thug.
Emily, how do you think court went today for the Southern District of New York and Maduro?
I thought it was an interesting snapshot into the tenor that we can expect from Maduro and Flores and both of their respective attorneys. And respectively, Maduro, defiant, he still thinks he's in charge no matter what room he's in. His wife seemed a little bit more subservient, a little bit more defeated, as Paul Morrow said. Obviously, she has claimed that she broke a rib during the abduction. The attorneys came out sort of establishing assertiveness right away. And obviously, they talked about fees. They talked about the voluminous and complicated discovery that we can expect. But I think this underscores and highlights why the Southern District of New York, they are the gold standard venue to hear this. And we know that they have established this history in the past. And people are saying, why there? And how can we haul this person here? Since the 1800s, this country has settled that it doesn't matter if someone is abducted in a foreign country, and it doesn't matter if there are interests that are harmed. We can have it be in any venue, and the SDNY is, again, that gold standard for that reason. So if there's international criminal conduct, then we can hold essentially that prosecution anywhere that the U.S. interests have been harmed, any venue. SDNY in particular, however, number one, all money laundering and all of the banks, the financial headquarters of the world. So sort of conversationally, every dollar flows through New York, even if it's proverbial. We have a longstanding relationship, the SDNY, with people like FinCEN and the DEA and all of those elite agencies, and the special elite quality of our prosecutors there to deal specifically with the narco-terrorists, to deal specifically with the drug lords, to deal specifically with these global thugs that are used to having their way in any room, that really cannot be overstated. So I think going into this, and the judge himself said this, at the age of 92, he sounds a lot younger, but he said, look, I am ensuring that this defendant will have a fair trial. And if the appeals record is any indicator of what we are going into, then the success of SDNY is to be totally expected.
Greg, the Biden-Harris administration had a $25 million bounty on his head, but they didn't do anything. Right?
They didn't.
They just waited to see if somebody would capture him. And then it's interesting to see some Democrats being so outraged that he actually did something.
I fear, Dana, that I've lost the ability to make complete sentences.
Oh, after the time off?
Yeah, I've spent 2 weeks with a 1-year-old. I've not had a conversation that is about anything.
Okay. Would you like to sing us a song about how you feel?
Yes.
Which is your favorite
line? What was, oh yeah, 25 million. I think Trump should give that to the Delta Force. Right? Again, Democrats, they'll throw money at anything, but they won't actually do it. I feel like this is like, Trump is kind of like the parents that become the trustees of a drug-addled celebrity. Like, he's just going over there, he's just running the business until you can get back on your feet. The irony of this golden age is that it's got to be great to be a commie mayor in New York City, because Trump is outside your kingdom solving all of your problems. You know, it's like staunching the flow of drugs, reducing illegal immigration, slashing crime by gangs, easing the burden on your social programs that are designed for the citizens, all the things that we were going through under a Democrat mayor, under Adams and under Biden. But now Trump is handing Mamdani a soft landing, a honeymoon. All these horrible problems that existed under Biden are now going away. And, you know, Trump, I know people are saying, but Trump's against forever wars. Well, what's the opposite of a forever war? It's not no war. It's precise surgical action, taking out drug boats, bombing nuke facilities, extracting a dictator, so you don't have forever wars. It's not a forever war when you're lancing a zit. A forever war is what Trump is dealing with domestically with Democrats. You know, this complex fraud, you know, that is waged against us every day. And it's like, it's such a contrast between Trump's decisive action and kind of the Kafka-esque, you know, corruption of Democrat rule in every city that continues to keep going. Now, there's an argument, and Harold touched on it briefly, but then scampered away from it because he knew I would crush him like a bug.
Scampered.
Trump, says it's about drugs, and people will say, well, if it's about drugs, why didn't he go after Mexico? Mexico is the primary source of fentanyl. Venezuela isn't. Well, you do Venezuela so you don't have to do Mexico. You start small and you send a message. You work your way up to the ladder, to the big stuff. And who knows, you may not have to do it, because as you can see, people will start cooperating. Yep. The other interesting thing that people haven't brought up, but I will now, is that, where does all the fentanyl precursors come from?
China.
Exactly, Dana. Thank you for completing that thought. Who was in Caracas? Is that how you say it? Hours before Maduro was snatched? Top Chinese diplomats. Why are they there? Because they're Maduro's sugar daddy. And basically, Venezuela is the crack house for China, where they pimp out whatever they need. So China's role in Venezuela is enough basis for the Monroe Doctrine to go in there and clean it up.
Peace through strength.
Yeah, what just happened?
I think you did well. You did well. I think she would be very proud of you.
Yeah.
You just need a little throw up on the sweater. I think you'll be fine. It'll get you
there was a lot of vomit. Some of it mine.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.